Welcome to the RocketPD Podcast. I'm your host, Corey Murray. I'm a longtime education journalist and co-founder of RocketPD, here to bring you real talk with educators confronting what's broken in America's schools and hopefully offering up some advice and solutions about how to help fix it. Whether you're out to engage families, center students in their learning, or empower teachers and staff, we're going to cover the gamut, giving you ideas and frameworks that you can start using today. So what do you say? Are you ready to launch? Then let's get into it.
No one wants to shortchange kids. No one gets into education to do a bad job by kids. So there's this sense among educators, and I think teachers in particular, that they are always working, but they're never done. And no matter how much they get accomplished, they've never done enough. There's no kind of stopping point. So
Angela Watson is the founder of Truth for Teachers and the author of Fewer Things, Better. In an age where school teachers and staff are starved for time, Angela has emerged as a leading voice on time management.
And so they feel like they're either neglecting their personal lives to do things for their students, or they feel like they're not doing all that they could be doing for their students because they are creating boundaries on their nights and weekends. And those boundaries feel selfish because we want to do what's right for kids.
On this episode of the RocketPD Podcast, Angela and I share practical ideas to help busy teachers and school staff make more efficient use of time. We talk about changing mindsets, letting go of perfectionism, creating space in the day, and building efficient systems.
So the important thing to know is that we are dealing with systemic overwhelm. This is not individual failure. If you are having a hard time getting it all done, balancing everything, it is not just you. This is really a systemic issue, and that means we have systemic solutions.
At the end, Angela tells us about a cohort she's building later this fall to help teachers model and master these techniques. This was a good one. I hope you'll check it out. All right, Angela, well, thanks so much for taking some time to sit down with me today and talk about what has got to be one of the most important topics that teachers are facing right now, which is time management. It just seems no matter which way you slice it, nobody has enough time right now. Teachers in particular are stressed. They're being asked to do more. Schools are cutting staff. That's putting more on the plates of the teachers and staff that are still there. And I could not think of a better person to talk to about this challenge than you. You're the editor of truthforteachers.com. It's a very popular blog. You wrote the book, Fewer Things, Better. I mean, you have been in this space thinking about it for so long. People have asked me if I could get you on the podcast to talk about this. So I feel very lucky that you're here today. I thought before we kind of jumped into the whole thing of what can teachers do, let's set the stage for people. Why is it in today's world in particular that we just feel like time is so precious, we never have enough of it? Why is this particularly such a big deal in schools?
Corey, I think it's a big deal in schools because we have a higher purpose. It's not just a job. It is a mission. It is a calling for a lot of people, and we want to do the best possible job for kids. If we aren't doing a good job, then we are shortchanging kids, and no one wants to shortchange kids. Yeah. No one gets into education to do a bad job by kids. So there's this sense among educators, and I think teachers in particular, that they are always working, but they're never done. And no matter how much they get accomplished, they've never done enough. There's no kind of stopping point. And so they feel like they're either neglecting their personal lives to do things for their students, or they feel like they're not doing all that they could be doing for their students because they are creating boundaries on their nights and weekends. And those boundaries feel selfish because we want to do what's right for kids. So the important thing to know is that we are dealing with systemic overwhelm. This is not individual failure. If you are having a hard time getting it all done, balancing everything, it is not just you. This is really a systemic issue, and that means we have systemic solutions. Productivity isn't about doing more or fitting more things into the day. It's about doing less of what doesn't matter. And so my book, as you mentioned, called Fewer Things, Better, The Courage to Focus on What Matters Most, really helps teachers figure out this mentality of having the courage to figure out what moves the needle for kids, giving 100% in those areas, and then giving less to the rest of it. Really streamline, eliminate, or simplify the rest. And productivity is not a nice to have. It's not an extra. It's not one more thing. The sustainability of this profession really depends on teachers being empowered to protect their time and energy without guilt. And with the teacher attrition crisis at crisis levels, we have to stop treating burnout like it is a personal problem, start treating it like this systemic problem, this workflow problem, which does have practical solutions, which I'll be sharing with you.
That's cool. So time is sort of this finite thing. You can't really change it. You have as much as you have, but you can work within the time that you have to be more efficient, to create more space, both professionally and for yourself, so that you can be more effective in your job. I love that idea because I do think that sometimes we get in this notion of how do I create more time for myself? But that's a different mindset than how do I create more space for myself within the time that I have?
I love that framing. That's great.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about that for a second in the school context. Again, we mentioned at the outset, it's difficult because people feel like they have more put on their plates than ever before. When you're starting to think about, okay, I have a lot to do, that alone feels very overwhelming. How do you kind of separate yourself from, gosh, I have a lot to do, and get out of that mindset to, okay, I'm going to work really effectively to get all this stuff done?
So it's really about shifting from surviving the day to really designing your day. So you're no longer just reactive, you're being really intentional. A lot of folks in education feel like they're just putting out fires all day long. You're just responding to whatever seems urgent in the moment. And that's at the expense of what is really critical to the job. Planning engaging lessons, connecting with kids, really assessing student understanding and having a good grasp of where students are at. These are essential, but they can kind of be done anytime. So it's really easy to push back the things that make the biggest impact on kids to the sidelines to deal with that email or to deal, with that meeting. So when you are really focused on productivity and designing your day with intentionality and using your time well, you have more time to think, to breathe, to be creative. You don't feel like you're constantly behind, which is just one of the most discouraging ways to feel, right? And a lot of people feel like that. They just feel like they're always behind the eight ball. They're just, never going to catch up and get to where they need to be. So the goal is really to rediscover the joy of teaching, to have your brain not be bogged down by a million little decisions, and to leave work knowing what you have accomplished and feeling like it was enough.
That's really cool. You have talked about before in previous conversations, this idea of defining your priorities. And there was like a little note in there that I took in a previous conversation that we had where you said, define high ROI tasks for prioritization. I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about what that means.
Yeah, it's about really thinking about the return on the investment that we're giving, not only of our time, but of our energy, of our attention. It could be our financial resources. What are we pouring into? And really thinking about what is coming back out of that. And I think a lot of that is about really normalizing not doing it all, where we don't want teachers to be penalized for setting boundaries or to feel like they have to be constantly adding new things to their plate. We really want to model work-life balance and give permission to let go of what's not essential. So taking the time to figure out what actually is giving you a high ROI is absolutely essential, because then what are the things that I really want to invest time in. And then these are the low ROI things. These are the things that aren't giving a lot back, that really aren't helping kids very much or having a big impact on the way that our school runs. How can we simplify, streamline, or eliminate those?
Now, a lot of educators that I know, and I speak to a lot of them, are kind of type A, right? We like to do a lot of things ourselves. We're old school. We want to go in. We want to write things down. We want to take notes. You talk a little bit about streamlining responsibilities, using things like automation where you can, eliminating certain things. Talk to me a little bit. Like if I'm a type A person, I have a way that I like to do things. I've done them a certain way for years in my classroom and in my work. How do I go about the process mentally of just streamlining those responsibilities and trying as best I can to be a little bit more efficient?
So one thing that I talk about a lot with teachers is to relax your standards to a level where no one else will notice but you. And start with that. Start with the things that you are doing and only you care, that no one else notices. Maybe you're spending time creating these amazing looking bulletin boards. And, the students just kind of accidentally rip things off of them. No one really pays attention, or they notice it the first day and that's it. So that could be something. Maybe you have this color coded, super organized thing that maybe isn't actually saving you that much time. Maybe it is. Maybe it's helping you think about your tasks in a more organized way. But again, it's just the intentionality. It's questioning it. Am I actually getting a good return on the investment of time that I'm taking to maintain these spreadsheets and this documentation or whatever in the way that I am? Are there things that I'm doing where I could just relax my standard a little bit? It's not lowering standards. It's just relaxing it. Because when we are rigid, it's like, no, it has to be done this way. I can't relax until it's done. I can't stop until it's exactly like this. And that to me is a sneaky form of perfectionism, because a lot of people are perfectionistic and don't realize it because they think, well, I don't need things to be perfect. I just need them to be done to my standard. But your standard is really, really high.
Oh, yeah.
And when you look around, you're like, is this actually what's required? Is anyone else really asking me to do it this way? Or is this just the way that I feel like I cannot possibly do it any other way? Look for more effective, efficient ways to do things and really relax those standards. Don't be rigid about them and say, you know what, in this case, I have to plan for a substitute. I have parent-teacher conferences. I have other things coming up. So instead of doing things the way I would normally do them, I'm just going to relax my standards for this. I'm going to do it in a simpler way. I'm going to maybe not create this activity from scratch, but maybe just, modify something that I already have just to save a little bit of time and be able to focus on these other things. So that's an example of relaxing your standard to a level where no one else will notice. The students don't know what lesson you could have taught them. They only know what you did teach them.
Yeah.
So as long as it's a great engaging lesson that addresses the standards, they're not going to know the difference there. And it's not possible to always give 100% in every area because we don't have unlimited time. If we had 5 hours of planning time a day, sure, we could all hit those, those very high standards every single time. But we really have to focus on the trade-offs, the opportunity cost. What are we saying no to in order to saying yes to this other thing? And is that the right trade-off?
Well, I love that, this notion that we are often our harshest critics.
Yes.
And I think that is so true, particularly in education. At the risk of sharing too much, I'm gonna give you an example of something in my own house, right? So recently, my wife and I have started doing this time blocking exercise, time to talk about finances, time to talk about childcare, time to talk about work. At first, it was really hard for us to kind of get into the flow of that. But now that we've done that, we find that we have, much more effective conversations. We also feel like we're more present in other times, like when we're just, playing with our daughter or, going for a walk in the neighborhood. We can be more present in that time. I know one of the things that you talk about with teachers is this notion of scheduling and time blocking. And like I said, it certainly worked for me in a completely different context, but I'd love to hear from you about how this is working with teachers in the classroom that you've worked with and how that can be applied in a situation like this where we're feeling really stressed and we have so much to do, creating, as you said, that space.
I'm really glad you shared that example. I think it's a great example of intentionality. You and your wife decided what is a priority for you, and you set aside time for that so that you're not feeling like we're always talking about work all the time. It's like, no, we can save this conversation for that other time. Or, we never get a chance to talk about this topic. No, I know for sure on Tuesdays, that's when we're going to do it. It's the exact same principle. At work. So a lot of teachers like the idea of having theme days. So maybe Monday is your preparation day. That's when you make your photocopies. That's when you gather all your materials for the week and you kind of set everything up. Maybe Tuesday and Thursday afternoon is your assessment time. That's when you grade papers. Maybe you do it at school. Maybe you take them home. It's your choice. Doesn't really matter where you want to do it. But those are the days that gets done. And the great thing is that creates a consistency for students too, because they know when you do the grading. So they're not asking, did you grade this yet? Can we get this back yet? They know Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's when you're going to be doing it. Or maybe it's, one Sunday a month or one Friday afternoon a month is when you sit down and you work on unit plans. So really kind of blocking off time for things and thinking about when do you actually have the time and the mental bandwidth for it. So I talk about lesson planning in particular. That is a task that a lot of teachers do choose to do at home or do after school because you need a longer block of time to really think deeply. And unfortunately, a lot of teachers do not have sufficient planning time to be able to do that during the school day. So really think about when is your best time for that? Are you better in the morning or in the afternoon? Would you rather do it when there's no one in the school building, or would you rather do it when you have people around to bounce ideas off of? So really think about the ideal time for some of these tasks. Block off time in your schedule for that. And that way you know that there aren't things that are going to be left undone. That even if you have, this email that you know that you need to reply to, it's like, no, I know my time period. I always check email at 9 a.m., at 1 p.m. and then at 3:30 p.m. or something like that. So I know I will have time during the day to do that. And that way you're also not stuck answering every single message as it comes in or feeling like you need to stop class to respond to an email. You can even put it in your signature that during the school day, my number one focus is being present with my students. Feel free to email me.
I've seen a couple teachers do that recently that I've been working with. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. My priority is the students during the day. What parent wouldn't want to see that their child's teacher is focused on my child? That's great. You're free to email me 24/7. I will read and respond at this time on this date. So you can expect a response from me after school.
I love the idea of creating and managing those expectations through communication like that. That's pretty cool. So you have this idea we've talked about where we're changing our mindset, right? We're allowing ourselves, if we are our harshest critic, we're allowing ourselves to change our mindset to think a little bit differently. We're thinking about scheduling and blocking time for things. But you go a step further and you talk about now that you've allowed yourself to do these things and you have these structures, you talk about building organizational kind of systems that can help you sort of do this over the long haul or to do this more consistently over time. Could you tell me a little bit about what that means?
If you're going to create these kinds of systems that streamline, you really need to think about using all of the different tools that are available to you. A lot of teachers now, of course, are using artificial intelligence to help them streamline some of the more mundane aspects of the job. ChatGPT is really great at helping you word things in a professional way. That's part of what makes email so time consuming, right? Is that we have to add in the niceties. We have to phrase things very gently, kindly, and ChatGPT can do that. So you can just tell ChatGPT, including just speaking directly into the microphone in the app. You don't have to necessarily type it out. Just say, hey, I need to convey this to a coworker or to a parent. Can you write this for me in a way that is very, respectful and non-judgmental? And then just say how you feel. And ChatGPT will translate that for you. So really availing yourself of those kinds of tools, working with other teachers, not trying to reinvent the wheel and do everything yourself, and really think about subtracting with intention instead of your systems being about adding things. Humans have a natural bias toward wanting to add things in versus taking things out. And a lot of times what we need to do is remove some things, to think about things that we are doing that are too cumbersome and take them out.
Yeah, this reminds me a little bit of my house. It's like it gets too cluttered. And once it gets too cluttered, I find myself like unable to think or be productive because I'm just thinking about the mess. I feel like there's a natural sort of parallel to that thinking and what you're talking about, which is like clear things out. Give yourself space within the room that you have to work more effectively.
Yeah. And a lot of times that's not even our first instinct. We'll see the mess and think, oh, I need to organize it. I need to buy more stuff to organize too much stuff. When the solution really is get rid of some things. What is no longer serving me and let that go.
Yeah, we need like a Marie Kondo over here at our house for sure. So talk to me a little bit about, let's say as a teacher, I'm leaning in, right? I'm excited about this idea of really thinking about how I'm spending my time, being more efficient with it, bringing in systems to remove some of that clutter so that I can be more effective. I mean, this is cool stuff, particularly, in this day and age. Like I said, we're so just like things are hitting us all the time. We're so stressed. We have demands on our time in school, outside of school. This is a great idea. I would love to be able to see this as a teacher start to trickle down to my students, right? So I'm supporting their time management. I'm making them more effective in when they're learning in their classroom. And I'm seeing that impact of that on their faces, in their grades, in the mood inside the classroom. So talk to me a little bit about what I think, I guess, is supposed to be the end result of all of this.
So I think what we want to do is give teachers permission to customize and simplify their work. A lot of what we're doing is like a one-size-fits-all mandate. Like we're all using this tool, but not everyone's brain works in the same way. Maybe some people would prefer to do it paper and pencil. Some people would prefer to do it online. So allowing some of that differentiation that we provide for kids, that we know is best practice for kids, it's also best practice for adults. So allowing teachers to figure out their own processes and to do them in a way that suits them is really important. Having clarity around goals and figuring out, again, with that ROI piece. And I think also a school culture that values time for reflection and time for rest and rejuvenation as much as the hustle. Some ways that I've seen schools do this is I've seen administrators that will set boundaries for the teachers and say, at this school, we don't expect teachers to reply to email after 4 p.m. or to take phone calls after 4 p.m. or on weekends. So just be aware that if you do message during that time, you won't hear back until Monday, and setting that school-wide so that we aren't pitting teachers against each other. Well, Mrs. Jones answered my email at midnight. Like, why didn't you? So kind of like setting these shared goals together. You can also do the same thing around meetings. Really being very intentional about, does this need to be a meeting? How long does this meeting need to be? Sometimes a 15-minute meeting will suffice. We don't actually need to block off a half an hour. Maybe we can do some collaboration in a Google Doc ahead of time, and then we don't have to meet for as long. So what we're really doing here is protecting teachers' planning time, because that's the number one thing that teachers say about improving morale and being able to do their jobs effectively is protect my planning time. I have to have that time during the school day to work on these other things so that I'm not burning out by trying to do some of the most important parts of my job on my own time, on evenings and weekends when I'm tired and I have other responsibilities. I want to be focused on my lesson plans. I want to really do them well. So protect that planning time so that they can do that. And there's lots of really simple ways to do it, even when you're short-staffed, even when you don't have a lot of substitutes. There are definitely ways that schools are making this work, and it has a huge impact on morale.
Well, that's wonderful to think about, this idea that we always use this phrase. We say teachers represent the shortest distance between students and their potential, that we have, that exists, right? I mean, I think we can all fundamentally agree to that. And why? Because they're so connected to what students need, and we need to protect their ability to service those needs, I think is what I hear you saying. This is the thing that is the beating heart of education, of teaching in particular in classrooms. We need to protect that time because that's where the real value comes through.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what reduces teacher attrition as well. When teachers feel like their time is valued and respected and they're treated as professionals, they're much more likely to stick in the job.
That's very cool. That's very cool. I want to ask you, just in terms of students, students also, sometimes have a difficult time managing their time. Do you spend time working with teachers about how to help students manage their time in similar ways?
Yeah, I sure do. As a matter of fact, I have a new book coming out on that very topic, as a matter of fact, which you didn't even know. So there you go.
Great. I can't wait to read it.
Yeah. That's going to be coming out this fall, as a matter of fact, very close to our cohort. So yeah, it's really translating a lot of these strategies into the classroom, because I've been working with teachers on productivity and mindset for so many years. A lot of them are very advanced in these strategies, and they're like, we want to teach our kids. Our kids need these mindset things too, and these strategies. So helping kids learn how to manage their time, their energy, and their attention. That to me is like, that's the perfect little trifecta right there, because it doesn't matter if you have time to do something if you don't have the energy, right? If you're too tired, and sometimes with students, they can't sit still, they can't focus, they have too much energy. So being able to have the right amount of energy matters, and being able to focus your attention. Can you concentrate on the thing that you want to be concentrating on in that moment? Or is your mind all over the place? And this is another area where we often think that, you're either, focused or not, or you're either good at time management or you're not, that it's a personality trait. And it's not. These are teachable skills. They're teachable for educators. They're teachable for kids. There are workflows that you can adopt, and there are different tools that you can add to your toolbox. And that's really the approach that I love for teachers and for kids, is to stop thinking about one magic bullet, one size fits all solutions, and realize that we are human beings. And so our needs are going to vary from day to day, from week to week, from month to month, from year to year. And so you want to have lots of different tools in your toolbox to say, okay, I'm having trouble getting this done. Could I use the Pomodoro technique today and work for 20 minutes? When the timer goes off, I take a break for 5 minutes and go back in. No, I don't really feel like doing that today. Okay. Do I need a break first? What if I go outside and I take like a 5 or 10 minute walk and come back? Would that be the right thing for me today? Do I maybe need to talk to a friend? Maybe like there's something that's kind of bothering me and I just need to talk it out first. Let me go have that conversation in a couple of minutes, come back and try that. So knowing these different strategies and being able to monitor your own needs is really critical. And when we do that as teachers, we're able to model it for kids, because that's where we want to get with students. We don't want every single teacher to have to figure out what every student needs in that moment. It's impossible. Particularly if you're at the secondary level, you have 150 students. Yeah. There's no way you can know what's going on with all of them in that 1 hour a day that you have. So we want to teach kids to recognize their own needs and to have the shared vocabulary to talk about those needs. What do you need to do right now? What needs do we need to meet in this moment to make sure that you're able to focus and you're able to get your assignments done? So as you can tell, it's something I'm very, very passionate about, because I've seen the difference this makes for teachers, and their enthusiasm for bringing it to their students is really it's really exciting to see.
Well, I love this idea of teachers are reaching into their time toolbox, students are reaching into their time toolbox, and together we're coming up with these common sort of customizable solutions based on the circumstance that those individuals are in, as opposed to, like you said, a one size fits all approach to this, which is not going to cut it. Hey, I know you're doing something this fall. You're bringing a group together to talk about some of these techniques, to model some of these techniques. I would imagine if you're a teacher, either new to the profession or if you've been in the field for a while and you're just looking for ways to kind of increase the space that you have to think about these important things that you're doing in your classrooms, this might be something you want to do. So can you tell me a little bit about that event and what you're hoping to do and accomplish?
Yeah, I'm so excited about unlocking teacher productivity because it's not about one more thing to do or another set of tasks to add to your plate, one more thing that you have to learn. It's really about those mindset shifts and about creating systems that will free up more time for you, which is just, to me, it's just the best kind of PD. And I'm really excited to work with a live group because we get to apply these concepts in real time, and teachers can bounce ideas off of each other, which is often where the greatest wisdom is, right? Is collaborating with other people in similar situations. So we're really going to be focusing on collective problem solving and really practical wins, not perfection, not, solving this once and for all, because this really is a lifelong practice. We never just get our lives perfectly in balance and we're done, because things are always changing. The job is always changing. Our lives are always changing. So developing those skills of being adaptable, being flexible, being resilient, being able to have lots of tools in your toolbox so that no matter what happens, you feel prepared, you feel like you can handle it. That's the goal. So it's really about moving out of that overwhelm and into this place where you can take back your evenings and weekends, that the job is not consuming all of your life, so that you can really show up as the best version of yourself and do the best possible job for kids.
Well, that sounds wonderful. I'm sure it's going to be great. I want to thank you, Angela, for spending a few minutes chatting with me about this. Folks, if you're watching this, I will put the link to the cohort in case you're interested in joining in the chat. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Amazon or wherever you find your podcasts, I would just recommend go to RocketPD.com and you can look for Angela's cohort there and sign up. Angela, I just want to thank you again for spending a few minutes with me. This has been fantastic. I hope to have you on the podcast again real soon.
Yeah, I love that, Corey. Thanks so much.
All right, you got it. Take care. Thanks for listening to this episode of the RocketPD Podcast. I'm your host, Corey Murray. We hope you found today's conversation insightful. If you enjoyed what you heard, consider clicking that like button and subscribing to our channel. You can download the RocketPD Podcast wherever you find your favorite pods. We're also on YouTube. Just search for RocketPD. At RocketPD, we're on a mission to empower the world's teachers and staff. To learn more about our work and the community we're building together, visit us anytime at rocketpd.com. If you're an educator and you're listening to this, remember, your work matters. So be well, do right, and let's keep up the fight.